For sure. I almost think that matchup is almost unwinnable.
It's the way that Glacial Shard interacts. Like, if Shutterwalks get chaining, you don't even need to have a Life Drinker in your pool. You can just use it to buy time until you find a Life Drinker at that point, because the Glacial Shard, turn after turn, prevents you from gaining health or dealing damage.
Not only that, but you also can have things like the Gluttonous Ooze in the pool to kind of, stall the weapon out quite a bit. And the best answer Kingsbane has, besides a potential Blade Flurry with the weapon up, and if they've already used that, then yours in the clear, is Vanish.
Yeah.
You know what Vanish does? It does what Shutterwalk's aiming to do, and that's put it right back in your hand to cast next turn.
Yep, so our first matchup that we got coming up is Fenom on OTK Paladin, taking on Crane with Malygos Druid. And Dr. J, you've been talking about this deck. You've been saying it's been struggling a lot, but Fenom's looks a little bit different than a lot of the other ones that we've been seeing on the broadcast as far as you and I are concerned. Give me the lowdown on this matchup and who you think's got the edge.
Yeah, so Phenom's lineup with the OTK Paladin inside of it is not as heavy as most OTK Paladins. It's running a copy of the High Priest Deckle that we saw on the Mulligan, and then also it's running Shrink Rays. And that is basically where it effectively caps out at, besides Uther and Shrivala the Tiger. Whereas some lists are running like Spike Ridge Steed and also Linessa the Sun Sorrow, just to, capitalize on having that value with the buffs. Whereas Phenom is just more so, I'm going to control the board, I'm going to end you with the combo that there's no other alternate strong win condition. He doesn't have pressure in this deck, unless you consider Call to Arms bringing out a couple Loot Hoarders pressure.
Well, I'm looking at the Call to Arms. There's 2 of those in the deck, but there's also 2 copies of Doomsayer as well.
Yeah, Doomsayers aren't really pressure enablers. They're more so, I'm going to control this game.
That's actually a pretty cool interaction that Phenom has with Call to Arms and Doomsayer, where you're getting some amount of minion on the side. The main facet of it is that you're thinning your deck out. And with the Doomsayer in there, your opponent feels pressured to, if they want to keep their board around, they got to kill a Doomsayer, which yields you some minions.
Exactly, and a lot of times those minions that you get out are going to be minions like Kangor, Blood Mage, Righteous Protector, which even protect the Doomsayer from being able to be cleared off.
Yeah, I think this is quite a brilliant inclusion he's got.
I do like it. I do like it a lot. Even the Flash of Lights, a new card, 2 mana, restore 4 health, draw a card. You're going to be thinning through your deck really, really quickly.
No, Doomsayer here, 1 in hand already. But again, the main purpose for that card for Phenom is that the deck gets smaller. And as it gets smaller, it helps him find Uther, it helps him find Ancient Brewmasters and the Zola to deliver that combo. But, something I'm worried about is the amount of burst damage that Crane can have. How much of a trouble is he going to have if Crane puts together an early Malygos?
Yeah, I think with this matchup, I would say that the Malygos Druid is favored because it will get to its combo, I would say, typically much quicker than the Paladin can. But, one issue is, Paladin and how it, does its combo. Not a huge fan of it.
It just takes a lot of time. It's more like a 4 TK setup.
Yeah, I know, right? Not an OTK. 4 maybe TK.
Yeah, and Phenom, we see him adjusting a lot, and he's really a player who has not been afraid to show his emotions while he's playing the game. He often wears his heart on his sleeve. If you don't see him frustrated or elated or what have you, that's just not how he's feeling at this time. But here he's kind of shifting around. He's sinking down, getting low, and staring at the screen for the focus. It's telling me he might be a bit uncomfortable about the direction this game's going right now.
Yeah, Phenom is a very emotional player. I've played against him quite a bit. And as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure every tour stop I've, competed at, I had to play him. And he does, have so many emotions. It's happiness.
It's so fun to
rage,
see.
I love to see that out of players. When something either goes their way or doesn't go their way, and you sit there and look at it and you're like, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so Phenom's taking it quite slow here. He doesn't choose to draw a card or anything. I feel like this is like Alex Straza is really the card that he's got in mind from Crane's side when he chooses to hold on to all this healing.
Yeah, it does have access to Crystal Core Cansmith. Crystal Core. What am I saying? What is that card's name, Admirable?
Well, you can read it on the paper here.
Oh, let me read it on the paper.
Crystal Smith
Kangor. You sure it's not Crystal Kangor Smith?
You've called it about 4 different names this weekend, but you get the gist of it.
It's a little CK.
What?
It's a little CK right there.
It's a rapper name.
Little CK right there, alongside the Flash of Light, is going to be quite the amount of healing to try and get through an Alexstrasza. And you can also couple it with something like Shrink Ray. We see that the 5-mana inclusion, it reduces all minions on the board to 1/1s.
So looking to lessen the blow from set you to 15 Alexstrasza.
Exactly. You heal 8, you draw a card, and you neutralize the Alexstrasza to being a 1/1.
And that perhaps buys him another turn to hold on to timeout to save it for when
Yes.
he feels that Crane's about to unleash a big Malygos combo. These are the turns that feel most awkward, though, where, you know, he's threatening to get chipped away because of the Malfurion. You don't have the liberty of doing nothing because, you know, you're not looking at 2 damage anymore from the other side. You're looking at 4 damage a turn from the other side. And that quickly adds up when you can't really use your cards. You know, Equality, he wants to keep that in hand. The Shrink Rays, he doesn't really want to use those. Ancient Brewmasters, he has to hold on to those. Shrivala, can't even play yet.
That's one of the awkward things about this deck is sometimes you get these hands where you have so many combo pieces that you can't play anything. So we see there Fenom just had to commit a Shrink Ray. I think it was okay. He does still have access to the second Shrink Ray on top of Equality, but, you know...
Just feels bad to use it.
5 mana... destroy a Spreading Plague token.
5 mana deal 4 damage. That's like holy water. I don't want to use that card.
I'd consider using that card.
But would you?
Fenom did.
He had to, though.
If I had to, I'd do it.
Can't just burn a card.
If I had to, I'd do it.
Yeah, but would you put it in your deck to start with? That's the thing about it is all these tools that are meant to fight off, you know, mid-range style packages. When they clog up your hand, it slows down a lot. But that's almost what Crane is exactly experiencing here too. Doesn't want to use the burn. Those are necessary for the Malagos. Nothing to discount with Dream Petal Florist. 2 Ultimate Infestations in hand. I mean, Crane's looking like he might have to burn some cards here.
It's so sketchy to burn those cards. I think for Fenom's spot, he can be more likely to burn a card here. We see Uther of the Ebon Blade inside of the hand. So there aren't too many cards that he's worried about burning besides potentially a Zola the Gorgon. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that would, you know, potentially be such a detriment to burn. I guess maybe Zola would be a pretty
Zola's like
burn.
almost game over. He doesn't have the Youthful Brewmasters in the package. Like, he can't draw those and hold on to them. You know, we've seen a lot of players use the Youthful Brewmasters even though they have Call to Arms, because when you draw them, you hang on to them. It's a cheap way to get back one of the Uther tokens. You know, you're trying to assemble 4 of those so that you can activate the alternate text. When you control all 4 horsemen, you win the game. I think it's quite clever to include those, but you know, Fenom has gone different directions with the Doomsayer. Very anti-aggressive. If he burns Zola, he's almost never going to win by sticking a 2/2 to the board. That's going to give Crane tons of time and tons of control over how that happens.
Yeah, I was going to say, sometimes you can try to stick that 2/2 if they don't have Malfurion up, but Malfurion just gives them that hero power to clear that 2/2 turn after turn again.
Yeah, there's not really pressure options from Phenom's deck. So Crane is going to burn one of the Moonfires.
Can't afford to, because Crane's list, I believe he's running the double faceless, if I remember correctly.
No,
he
Crane
actually
is trimmed down. Crane is you know, very much on the efficiency side of things. He's got a copy of Innervate in there, and you're looking at Malagos, Alexstrasza, Lich King, the single Dream Petal Florist, and Phlebidnus Floop. He very much believes he can get the job done in a minimalistic approach, and I think that's often the case. But here, there's a bit of nervousness on Crane's side as we're looking at no Malagos in hand, no Floop in hand, and he's going to burn a card.
Oh boy, this is a big burn for Crane here. Does not want to hit. He's already used a Swipe and a Moonfire. If he hits Malagos, I would say it's almost checkmate at this point.
It's a non-important card, so good news for Crane. But when you're
Phenom's hand, he has all of the pieces to do this combo.
and a timeout.
Oh boy.
And so for Crane, he doesn't want to use Alexstrasza here because Phenom's sitting with you know, the 10 extra health from the lifesteal weapon, the Grave Vengeance that Uther brings down.
Is that the name of it?
Grave Vengeance.
That is such a cool name. How did I not know that?
It's also the art for the weapon is an extension of Uther's art in the portrait.
Whoa.
Yeah. Like, the full art on that Uther is beautiful.
My thoughts are plagued.
I agree with you, Malfurion. My thoughts are plagued right now.
There's just not a lot of good stuff going on. Alexstrasza would easily get offset here. He has to start making progress, but the hand's just kind of clogged. I mean, does he have time to unlock a twig? I'm not sure he does.
No, he's definitely not going to have time. I think Crane is really debating whether or not to cast this Alexstrasza. I think he has to with the current state of his hand, but Fenom just has such a strong play into this.
So I'm thinking the goal of the Alexstrasza here is to just force Fenom to take time, because with the Uther up, you know, and Crane having the weak hand that he does, he needs to just occupy some of Phenom's time to draw the right cards. That's what it feels like to me.
The scariest part about this is Phenom's hand is in such a way that if he wants to do so, he can go Equality, Crystal Kangor Smith. Hero Power and Ancient Brewmaster all in the same turn.
And you don't mind taking the 8 damage because you're gaining 10 from the weapon, and then you're gaining 8 from the flash of light.
Could also go for Shrink Ray.
Flash of light, yeah.
Flash of light. Could also go for Shrink Ray, swing in, go back up to
24.
19.
Or, sorry, 19, yeah.
19, and then you go Hero Power Zola.
So that's the difference is you know, basically which one provides you more life longevity. And right now with Crane,
this one does.
With Crane not having Flora Step and a Moonfire being down, he's feeling quite safe at the 19 life in the Kangor next turn. He's able to buy it back pretty easily. It also discounts the Shirvala a bit more.
And also, for the next turn, Crane will have to deal with this Horseman. Because if he doesn't, it means that Phenom is guaranteed a separate Horseman on the following turn to bounce back.
Yeah, it's often, you know, a necessity to just pick him down as you go along.
Because the next thing you know, you're just kind of walking down the street, 4 Horsemen appear, and you're dead.
That's usually what happens when I'm walking down the street.
You never been walking down the street and you just kind of see the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse like running at you, and so you decide to go to the other side of the street so you avoid them?
Jason, I'm a gamer. I have never walked down the street.
Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think I've walked down the street either.
My thoughts are
Sunshine and weather is not going to stop me from staying inside and playing video games.
The 4 Horsemen will, though. If the 4 Horsemen were inside playing video games on my computer, I'd probably leave and go outside.
Naturalize attempting a burn, but we can see there's no relevant burns left in Phenom's deck. You know, timeout could be of consequence. Those, not so much.
Thank you, spectator. You're the real. You're the real one.
You're the real MVP.
You're the real MVP. I'm proud of you.
It's not the easiest turn for Phenom. You know, really wants to be making progress. You want to be checking yourself against the damage from the minions on board. You know, if Crane is allotted to land a branching pass here, Phenom could be
That's what I think Phenom's
trouble.
worried about,
Yeah.
is trying to find the best way to clear the board while...
Interesting, it chooses the Horseman prior to the Equality.
Well, the Horseman doesn't necessarily matter on the board because it's not going to die to anything. It's going to get bounced back. So what I think it was is he was debating whether or not he needed to bounce this Horseman.
Okay.
Because if he re-rolls...
I see.
He doesn't necessarily want to bounce it back.
10 health from Brave Vengeance. Crystal Smith Kangor is at its absolute best in this deck.
For sure. Especially with the Flash of Lights. A couple players haven't been playing that Flash of Light inside of this control palette.
Yeah, we've been seeing like Brewmasters and the Spikeridge Steed to try to
some
protect.
Blessings of Kings, you know, to be, you know, kind of a pseudo tempo deck as well.
Yeah, I think I favor the Flashlight. I think it's much
them.
more with how the deck wants to operate. You never want to pressure. You know, you have like an enrage timer. Oh, that's why he rolled first. I just realized this, because if he gets a duplicate one, he doesn't have to bounce in that instance. It could change the way he plays. Oh. So if he rolls a duplicate Horseman, then he just consecrates instead. Okay. Floop found no Malagos, though.
This is not looking good for Crane right now. This is not how I, you know, imagine the matchup going. He's still just trying to burn cards.
Well, it's also just the healing that threatens, so... You know, he's going to end up spellstoning this 5-4 and trying to push past. And I think this is the right course of action. You know, when you're missing combo damage and you're down some of the burn spells, you have to do what you can to try to put your opponent at threat.
All right, moment of truth. This is currently a 50% chance to roll a correct horseman.
That's a correct one.
That it is. You see Fenom hovering over, looking at the artwork, just making sure.
I'll put it on your tab.
And the reason that is because when the horsemen are summoned, it can summon
It's game.
next turn. It can summon one of 4 horsemen. But the issue is, the hero power checks the board state to see if the horsemen are on the board.
Yep.
Rest now.
Checkmate. So once you have 3 of them in hand, you play 3, you hero power, and that's game. And you know, with timeout being immune that turn,
There's nothing that Crane can do.
like you're dead.
I move my knight to bottom.
Like,
right.
when was the last time you played a game of chess and your opponent
Never.
made you take the king with your piece? Like, you announce checkmate, and they're like, okay, make a move.
Checkmate, and you're just like, no.
No,
No.
I'm going to make you do it.
I'm gonna make. I still like the move knight to bottom right.
Bottom right. Yeah. That's oftentimes what that deck can feel like if you don't get the right hand. It's Mechathune Warlock for Fenom taking on the Malagos Druid for Crane. And this is a deck we don't get to see very often tournament play. But when it shows up, I feel like if it's making it to the later stages, it had the right position. So to give you an idea of this deck, taps out at 4 mana. The rest of the cards in Phenom's deck cost 5, 7, and 10 with Ziliax, Lord Godfrey, and Mechathune. The rest of the deck wants to draw cards and enable that combo. Jace, explain this to me. What the heck is going on?
Yeah, so the whole goal of this deck is you're going to assemble the combo of double Galvanizer, Blood Bloom, Cataclysm, and Mechathune. What's going to happen is you're going to life tap and draw through the entirety of your deck, which is why there's Kobold Librarians, Mortal Coils, Blood Mage Thanos, Loot Hoarders, Novice Engineers. Once you get through the entirety of your deck and you have no cards left, over time with the Galvanizers. The Galvanizer is a 2-mana 1/2, reduce the cost of mechs in your hand by 1. You then make Mechathune cost 8 mana. You then play Mechathune with no cards left in deck, Blood Bloom, and then for 4 life you cast Cataclysm, discarding your hand, destroying the Mechathune, and winning the game for you. I've seen it happen, Admirable, and it is terrifying to play against, and it is glorious to witness.
I've seen it happen, but I don't think I've ever seen it happen in tournament play.
I casted series.
Look at this.
And you see that, just drawing cards.
It's just kind of wacky. Like, the whole deck is dedicated to drawing as much and as quickly as possible.
You know the game Solitaire, right? Fenom right now is stacking the red cards on the black cards over and over. He's finding the ace of spades to put up in the top left corner. He's trying to find the 2 of spades to put on top. Fenom right now is stacking the red cards on the black cards over and over. He's finding the ace of spades to put up in the top left corner. He's trying to find the 2 of spades to put on top of it.
And Crane's trying to avoid putting all
And
those cards in
Crane's
the
trying to
bottom right.
like just flip the table over.
He's trying to avoid putting those cards in the bottom right. Fenom is kind of bobbing his chair. He's having a good time.
Jamming
He's
right
feeling
now.
good right now. And a lot of that is just the way that Crane's hand has panned out. So far, no ramp, but Twig of the World Tree makes its appearance.
Yeah, Twig is a bit scary because you cannot afford to put any kind of tech cards in this Warlock.
Yeah.
This Twig will be live eventually.
It's pretty much like the reason these combo decks work. These game plans from the opponent. They go, oh, you're going to do that? Well, I'm just going to be faster. You know, you put an Ooze in here, suddenly you draw an Ooze, and at some point you have to spend 3 mana on an, getting a card out of your hand because you have too many cards in hand. That's a frequent thing I've encountered with Mecha'thun Warlock in my short time playing it, was that I often had too many cards in my hand.
Yeah, one of the issues for Fenom right here is that he has to play this Doomsayer, which seems a little, but if he plays any other card in his hand, besides maybe Dark Pacting the Kobold Librarian, which he doesn't necessarily want to do, he has the potential to burn a card on the following turn. And the issue with this Warlock deck is if you burn any one of the cards I mentioned earlier, Galvanizer, Blood Bloom, Cataclysm, Mecha'thun, you cannot physically win the game.
You'd have to have the Mecha'thun live for a turn, which Crane's not going to let happen.
No, exactly. And then you'd have to find a way to, I guess you just have to live for the turn. That is literally it.
It's boom or bust. Is
Unless
really what it is.
the army of loot hoarders and novice engineers can push enough damage through a Malagos Druid.
They cannot.
But to be honest, I think Malagos Druid could just branching pass for 12 and pass for the rest. Damage.
Yeah, burning the card in this one is of paramount importance. A lot of times we talk about burns and how they're not super relevant, but when you're playing decks where particular cards are life or death to your game plan, that's when burning cards needs to be an avoided situation.
Yes.
If you're playing like a mid-range or an aggro deck, you don't need to worry about burning cards. That's one of the least relevant things that happens.
Yeah, especially a deck like even Warlock, you can kind of afford to just, even life tap with a full hand just to enable Hook Reaver, because you don't care about that last card.
We actually saw Viper do that in this weekend.
All right, there's another combo piece. Fenom is going to keep drawing. Play out that Loot Hoarder.
I could see Defile getting used here sometimes. Like, he needs hand space. He doesn't need minions. He does need hand space. And what are you going to Defile in this matchup? I think
got something in mind.
I think that the turns that he has allow him to get rid effectively.
I think the one thing that Defile does enable though is for the second Acolyte of Pain, you can set up a Defile in order to draw multiple cards. So Defile in and of itself can be a 2-mana draw 2, which is going to be extremely beneficial for Fenom here.
Crane finds some ramp. But I don't really know if that's necessarily his front runner of interest at this point. I would tend to say that's really the thing too, is if you're going to do that, when do you set that up? Is it when your opponent is going to be drawing to 9, or when your opponent drawing to 10? Phenom's used a lot of the card draw minions at this point. You may not necessarily get that opportunity.
You could do it here. It's a bit ambitious. You only burn 2 cards.
Well, he's going for it, and I think it's right.
I like it too.
I think an opportunity to burn cards versus this particular is really important.
Uh-oh.
My hand is too.
Oh, Fenom dodged a huge bullet there.
The Galvanizer showing up first. The little Galvanizer that could.
That is my favorite saying.
The little Galvanizer. It's 3 extra health. But now it doesn't necessarily do that. Crane now, we're looking at Lich King plus something else.
Crane's pretty close to lethal here. Just 5 off right now.
Yeah, like Ultimate Infestation, attack with the Twig, double swipe, or, you would use the double swipe prior, I believe, to wipe out the Ziliax. So drop to 11, drop to 10, and then
4 off
Ultimate
lethal.
for 5, yeah. So Spellstone, Lich King, pop the Twig, Ultimate Infestation. Who cares about the Lich King card?
I like
We're looking for Malagos.
Not only that, but this is just so much pressure that how does Fenom deal with it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at hand, and right now it's like Voodoo Doctor, Defile. I'm sorry, not Voodoo Doctor, Voodoo Doll. Second Moonfire picked up. Oh, and Army of the Dead, Crane is actually free to use that right now just to try to find the Malagos.
And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if he's almost guaranteed to hit it. Now, for Fenom here, he may have a potential... The issue is you really want to play one of these Galvanizers in order to go I'm not sure if you have enough
He
mana.
has to have the Mechathune to play Galvanizer, though.
I know, but what I was saying is if he had the Mechathune, I was trying to think if he had enough mana to go something like Voodoo Doctor, Galvanizer, Spellstone, Defile, but he's not going to have enough mana to do that.
To me, this is like illustrating how important it is to be playing Lich King and Malygos Druid, where you don't always have to just Malygos your opponent. Pressure can beat them. And, you know, albeit this is not a common matchup, the illustration is that against a deck that's trying to combo you out, like, you know, even like a mirror matchup for Malygos Druid, the 8/8 Lich King can provide a threat that demands you know, speed from your opponent. That's not the name of the game right now for Fenom. He's having to play defense, and he's got poor tools to do it with.
7 cards left in the deck, but that is not quite enough at this point.
And that life tap, that takes him off of a turn of being able to use the Spellstone. 3 mana gets floated here. That's game.
Is too full.
He needed way more than this.
I'm almost out of cards.
Almost guaranteed for the Malygos there. And with 10 damage from hand with the 2 Moonfires, it was guaranteed lethal as it was. Wow. 1/1 apiece. Mechathune, Warlock, too slow in that game.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the issues, especially in that matchup, is you saw both players had 7 cards left in their deck. Shaman, Mirror. I think this is pretty beneficial for Crane here. He definitely did not want to hit the Kingsbane into Shutterwalk Shaman, and Shutterwalk Shaman into Mechathune Warlock.
To me, the big one is that he needed the Shutterwalk Shaman into Shutterwalk Shaman because Shutterwalk versus the Mechathune Warlock.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that.
It doesn't feel like you're doing much. So what are some of the key facets of this one? You know, mirror matches oftentimes we talk about how it's kind of coin flippy, but is there any approaches you can take that allow you to get a substantial edge in this matchup? I know you love to play a lot of Shutterwalk
Yeah,
Shaman.
sometimes the edge comes in the deck building phase. So for instance, I would say if either of these players are including a copy of Hemet, the Jungle Hunter, that helps them a lot get to their combo just that much quicker than their opponent. And once you successfully do that Shutterwalk, you win the game. Neither of these players have a copy of Hemet, so it's going to come down to who can maximize and, in a way, out-tempo the other player and just kind of make sure they get to that combo as quickly as possible. Right now, Phenom's hand is looking much better than Crane's. Crane has some draw, but he doesn't necessarily have, minion pressure.
And so something I'm looking at is Phenom's deck is a little bit different. He's got a copy of Zentimo and 2 copies of Tidal Surge.
I didn't even notice that.
To go into the deck, and he doesn't have Earthshock anywhere in the build. And I feel like Earthshock's a pretty poor card in this matchup. I'm looking at Crane's, and it's much more straightforward and a much more standard-looking list with the copy of Gluttonous Ooze, the copy of Earthshock, and the lone mind control tech in there. Does this Zentimo package ever provide Phenom a benefit in this spot, or are these slots that just don't really matter that much?
Actually, although the Earthshock, at first glance wouldn't seem like one of the most powerful tech inclusions, one thing that Earthshock does do is it answers something like Mana Tide Totem and prevents it from drawing while sticking it onto the board. It's also a decent card against Acolyte of Pain, whereas Tidal Surge will come down a turn later, and it will almost guarantee that they get at least 1 draw if it's something like an Acolyte of Pain.
Well, Mana Tide is going to draw 2. Matching Shutterwalks on both sides, and heck, maybe it's getting 3. That feels like really bad news if you're Crane.
There's that Earthshock coming in handy.
It allows them to mix in Farsight or Acolyte of Pain as well. I'm thinking Acolyte of Pain, oftentimes you're going to want to hold it for Volcano. Volcano's a pretty weak card in the matchup, and you don't want to get it hexed.
Yeah, definitely want to hold that Acolyte of Pain for that Volcano. Like you said, Volcano, sometimes it has merit. Sometimes you clear up a pretty decent board state or you kill a Grumble. Other than that, though, it is, 8 mana, draw 3 cards, which for Shutterwalk Shaman in the mirror is just fine.
Yeah, if your opponent has some minion pressure out too, it gets cleared up sometimes.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Get a little something here, get a little something there. But as for Crane here, he's going to be thinking about, what kind of course of action he wants to take. I definitely think he's going to want to commit this Earthshock in order to clear up this Mana Tide Totem. Does it in a way that he allows his minions to, stay on the board pretty sticky. Even going to use the Healing Rain here just to put these Serenite Chain Gangs back out of range. I really, really like that utilization on that Healing Rain there.
Phenom's hand is just so good, though. I mean, he's able to get
not
Prince
wrong.
Kaliseth, Zola the Chain Gang. He's got Electra plus the Farsight. Zola for Crane now.
Or both these hands are starting to pan out pretty strong, especially with that Zola. Glunasu's not the greatest of pickups, but could just play it as a threat and a body on board. Maybe Crane decides to go for some kind of tempo route.
Yeah, I would think that tempo route's the route here because if he ends up like making a big tempo play, it could put Fenom in a position where he doesn't have time to hex an Acolyte because damage could be a relevant thing. If you get far enough ahead in damage, you do start forcing AoE for your opponent, and that sometimes limits your ability to get your checklist going or to draw extra cards or what have you.
Definitely like copping the Serenite Chain. You want to make sure that you maximize your chances of making sure that Grumble goes off, or the Shutterwalk goes off on the Grumble. And this is one of my favorite plays to do is Shutterwalk Shaman Admirable.
So good.
It just feels so good.
Hagatha can be a liability in this matchup as well.
Right. Hagatha is one of those cards that I wouldn't be surprised if it's just always incorrect to not play it, unless you are going to die.
Is there a chance he's going to play it here if Crane... I mean, Crane just drew Mana Tide and he grabbed Acolyte first, so, I'm looking like he wants to play Acolyte plus Mana Tide in the same turn.
That's a bit ambitious, but Crane definitely needs to start drawing some cards. He is quite behind.
That's really the thing for me is, like, the hand's just getting kind of dead.
I think Crane's fine with the Lightning Storm coming out from his opponent.
Sometimes, but...
Honestly, another funny thing now is Crane has to think about placement. Because there is the possibility of Zentimo Tidal Surge. Typically, you wouldn't have to think about placement in this matchup. Unless, Hagatha came down, then there's also the... Avalanche. Which does something different every time I see it.
Freezes the middle and 3 to the adjacent.
I swear at one point, it froze the adjacent and did 3 in the middle. It's the Mandela effect.
Nelson Mandela?
You ever heard of the Mandela effect?
I've not heard of this.
Oh, the Mandela effect is when you were growing up and you remember something was a certain way, and then you go back and look upon it, and you realize that your whole life you were lied to and it wasn't that way.
Oh,
but a lot of people remember it as a certain way.
Oh, Volcano drawn for the Acolyte, too. So when this gets cleared, I mean, Fenom ripping that Hagatha out to clear this board. Crane gets to draw 3 cards, and he is in desperate need of draw right now.
Yeah, Crane's definitely going to have to rip this.
He does this before he even saw what the other card was.
It was an Acolyte. I mean, I don't blame him. I think that was the only play that turn. I don't see what you could have drawn. I mean, maybe Grumble. You just tempoed out a Grumble.
Fenom, big turn with a double checklist.
Oh, yeah. Phenom's going to start having some hand space issues, but I'm not sure if he's even worried about that.
Ooh.
Storm.
Perhaps alternative game plans as well.
Making some legendary minions. Maybe. All right, hear me out. Hear me out. We find Nose Dormu. And then we bounce the Nose Dormu back. And we, conveniently wait for Crane to be unsuspecting of when we're going to play our 1-mana Nose Dormu. And then we go, Nose Dormu pass, and then quickly go back to the turn. But then we can dictate when we play that 15-second timer.
Going way deep on this one.
I'm in the tank. What can I say?
Oh, brother.
I wouldn't be opposed to seeing the Stormbringer here.
I think that's one of his better plays. I would like to see the Hex on the Acolyte to deny the card draw.
I would like to see that. No reason to give them the card draw.
Because you're going to have 2 mana left over afterwards anyway, so use the 3/3 to attack the Mana Tide Totem. Hex the Acolyte.
All right, what could go wrong if you go the Stormbringer? We may find out.
Millhouse? I'm sorry, not Millhouse.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Well, that didn't go wrong. I was thinking Lorewalker Choke could go wrong because your hand could get full, but that's not wrong. That's instead extremely powerful, and Crane might be dead. 2
of those cards are arguably in the Shutterwalk deck already. 2 of those cards. You can Grumble the Grumble.
Also, just Tarantas. That's one of the best ones that you can get. 12/12 untargetable Druid Legendary.
Oh, Tarantas ain't nothing.
No, it's something. It's a 12/12.
Right now, I'm not scared, Admirable. If I was Crane, I'd be very scared.
Well, I'm not Crane, and I am scared.
What are you scared about?
And he has to Hex the Grumble. He doesn't have an option.
If Grumble gets drawn, you can put enough Grumbles in the pool to almost guarantee Shutterwalk goes off. You can copy the Tyrantus.
No, you can't target it with spells or abilities.
You cannot copy
spells or hero powers, rather.
the Tyrantus.
Excuse me. Yeah. You can't target it with battle cries and such, just not
Yeah,
hero
exactly.
powers and spells.
Sorry, I got so excited.
Yeah. You're thinking of the unicorn. That 4-mana 3/3 beast. Only you can target it.
You know, that's exactly what I was thinking about. Shimmering Tempest, I believe is what it's called.
I don't know. It's a unicorn in the art.
Shimmering
it looks like to me.
Unicorn of cannot be targeted by your opponent, but can be targeted by you. That's exactly the card I was
Yeah, I'm
thinking.
pretty sure that's the exact name of it as well.
You can Earthenmite the Frog, push a little bit extra damage.
The Battle Frog.
The Battle Frog. Oh, no, not that frog.
Oh. He's already attacked the other
the
frog.
Battle Frog. Not Cragball. There's the card. It does something different every time.
Well, Crane's going to need something different to happen. This is not working out.
Crane's going to need to be an entirely different card this time.
He is getting beat up.
He just doesn't have anything. Maybe we can hex the...
I mean, the Stormbringer was...
Stormbreaker was
That's one of the
amazing.
strongest outcomes I've ever seen from a Stormbringer, and it was just on 3 minions.
It was like a Category 5 Hurricane. That storm was so powerful, it brought the dinosaurs back to life.
It's the opposite of what the person
I know, right?
with that meteor
The
did.
opposite of the meteor. It just brought him back to life. Crane can't do anything unless he can magically hex this Tyrantus, and I don't think that's a possibility.
Well,
Although I did try to target it earlier.
he's dead. How's he going to get back into this? Nothing works.
Unity, precision,
Fenom's count up damage.
I don't blame him. That is quite a bit.
Well, there's 0 damage from hand, so I'm counting 21.
Okay. You can avalanche.
Yeah, the Shutterwalk has 2 life drinkers in the pool. Does it now? So that's potentially 6 damage, but you're going to give that up to the life steal and the attack if you want to trade over in life drinker.
Unless you Shutterwalk and hit a zap. It's a possibility.
Oh boy. It just doesn't need lethal this turn. Like how does he fall out of position here?
There's no way Crane. Yeah, maybe mind control tech into the Tyrannus, but then there's Grumble. For
Yeah, you just lethal.
Yeah, that's his game.
2-1 to Fenom. Shutterwalk Shaman gets through. And now I'm really worried for Crane in this one, concerned. And so I think it gives Fenom a lot of time to just get to the end game. Crane does have Keleseth in the opener, though, and that can be a big change to things. But I think that at the end of the day, Fenom is going to have a lot of time to get this done.
Yes, Keleseth plus Zola.
Yeah.
Maybe this is not, combo Shutterwalk Shaman. This is just outright tempo them.
Well, the Keleseth's going to get checked by the
that is true.
The Kobold here. But does have good card draw in hand. Does have Zola, to begin with. I think that is a pretty critical card. And Fenom, he's thinking about playing the Novice Engineer here to get around Mana Tide.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Typically, you would life tap in this situation because you life tap now because it's mana you can invest. You hold it to the Novice Engineer for a future turn where you can fit both that and potentially a life tap in the same turn. But you are exactly correct. Playing out the Novice Engineer would contest a coin Mana Tide totem.
So it's
which
like
is something that Phenom's thinking about.
It's opportunity cost is the consideration.
Yeah, you miss out on one draw later on, but you prevent your opponent from drawing cards. So does Phenom feel as if he draws faster, and I would agree with him, so he goes to play the Novice.
Double Hex found for Crane earlier. Those are not super strong in the matchup. There are times when they can be, like you hex exactly Acolyte or you hex exactly Doomsayer with a big board out. That's about it.
And Phenom just running out this Acolyte is going to give a hex target.
Yeah, Crane doesn't really want to be coin hexing, though.
But Crane doesn't really want to give Phenom 3 draws.
Nope. Definitely don't. Don't want to do
So
that.
I think Crane wants to be coin hexing.
Well, I think he will be. I don't think you're excited
think
about
Crane
it.
will tolerate coin hexing.
Yeah, tolerate's a good word for it. There you go. You finally found the right word. Didn't make anything up.
Tolerate.
Yeah.
Tolerate.
He's going to Mana Tide. Interested in drawing his own. I mean, it's not contested directly for Fenom, but this does allow now 2 draws.
It actually allows 3 draws. You can defile. You can bump into the Mana Tide with your Novice Engineer, defile, get all 3 draws from the Acolyte.
Yeah, it doesn't matter which one you bump with necessarily. I guess the question is, you know, do you necessarily want to kill off your Acolyte in this spot? You know, maybe the 1/1's valuable for, you know, poking down a damage here or there. So if you're going to do this,
damage is ever relevant
on board.
On
You know, having a
not
minion
one
on board.
damage, I would say.
Well, you know, thinking like a second Defile or, you know, with a Spellstone. I mean, Crane's played Keleseth at this point. So I like it this way where you get to keep the 1/1. Like, Crane's not going to Hex a 1/1, right? Oh, he did bump, though.
But you get 1 less draw if he does Hex a 1/1, because there is literally no other Hex target.
Yeah, you also have Doomsayer in your hand, which you just kind of want to get that out of your hand. You don't want Crane to be using, you know, his primed 4-mana cards this turn. Crane hangs on to the Life Drinker, says 4/4 in hand for 1 mana. I don't need to just jam this one out there for, you know, future development.
Now for Fenom could fit in a Life Tap, Loot Hoarder, and Mortal Coil.
And he's counting hand size, it looks like to me. You know, Galvanizer is able to be played at this point because Mecha'thun's been drawn. You know, you have to play both Galvanizers to discount the Mecha'thun. So, you know, future hand consideration is really what it looks like, managing that space in hand to maximize the potential.
And you are right, maybe Phenom's thinking about potentially leaving up one of the minions he plays. Like, for instance, if he does go to Loot Hoarder, he may not necessarily Mortal Coil it, because he may want it to contest something like a Life Drinker. But honestly, I think if you're Phenom here, you want to clear off your own minions, not only because of possibilities like Hex, but also Naturalize. You know, if Crane, or what am I saying? Why did I think of Naturalize?
I don't know.
Disregard everything I've said.
Because you're thinking Shudderwalk Shaman is like, it's like a weaker Druid deck. It's a good combo, still very good, but it doesn't blast off super fast. It's like a weaker Druid.
I'm just so used to watching highlight reels of Scintilla Burn Shudderwalk Shaman that I assumed every Shaman matchup had Naturalize in it somewhere.
Yeah, pretty easy Spellstone turn here. Needs hand space.
Can play out the Loot Hoarder as well.
Mind if I roll knee?
Phenom's looking good. So for Crane, you know, the Zola on the Life Drinker starts to have some interesting implications to me, because a 3rd one in the pool means that Shudderwalk's Battle Cry alone does 9. Like, sometimes you might just be able to tempo Phenom out.
I think that may be what Crane has to go for here. I almost wouldn't be surprised to see Swing Face, Hex, Coin Zola.
I wouldn't be surprised to see just Swing Face, Zola, Coin Life Drinker either.
Or maybe even, you know, Glacial Shard the Loot Hoarder.
Yeah, I think that he's got a lot of plays this turn, and that's really what I'm looking at. You know, you take a look at Phenom's deck list. There's no Hellfires in this deck. There's 2 Defiles, 2 Drain Souls, 2 Voodoo Dolls, and 2 Spellstones. That, you know, that's really the removal package.
Kind of a pseudo play of what we were mentioning. Wanted to put some kind of pressure on the board. Maybe wants to hold on to that coin for a potential Shudderwalk on future turns.
Yeah, really valuing the coin, and I'm finding that quite interesting because, you know, the thing that I'm looking at is he just wants to use it to get a big development play. You know, surprise Phenom in a spot. You know, the coin makes it harder to account for Shudderwalk turns, I feel like, maybe.
That's definitely a possibility, or maybe just wants to try and get the Shudderwalk down as early as possible, because there is no strong way for Phenom to deal with it.
Oh, that's true as well. You can actually just play it for tempo purposes.
Exactly.
Because it's just not really going to get handled that much.
So, for instance, if Shudderwalk gets drawn next turn, well, not only are there 3 Life Drinkers in the pool, but now Phenom has to, you know, regain life and then answer that Shudderwalk.
Yep. So it's looking like a good old do stuff turn to me.
Yeah, I love the
yeah, spend some mana.
I love the Galvanizer Ziliax. You can reduce it, and then play it cheaply, and then magnetize it.
I forgot about that.
Very cute interaction.
Oh, that's a super strong removal point.
It almost makes Galvanizer, which would typically be a quote-unquote useless card into a removal card.
It's a nice draw for Crane as well. Just get to answer it back. And Divine Shield means no lifesteal for Fenom. So a few extra points get pushed through there. But Fenom,
One card away from his combo, but he does still have to get through the entirety of his deck.
that's the key. You gotta get through the whole deck.
Ooh, he can go Voodoo Doll, Acolyte of Pain, Defile.
So that
Draw
would
3
leave him
cards.
with 5, 8 cards in hand. Opportunity cost on life tap, though. You know, what does that mean?
I think if you're drawing 3 cards, that may just be fine.
That's always the consideration, though. Is the opportunity cost worth it?
Okay, this works out as well. You also save that Voodoo Doll. You save the Voodoo Doll as an answer for a potential Grumble, which is very important. So I definitely like Phenom's spot here. Okay. Now it doesn't matter what Fenom burns. He is just going to be racing through his deck.
And Crane
Is also going to be
4
racing
cards
through his deck.
from the Acolyte, thanks to Keliseth.
12 cards.
Card draw races.
11 cards for Crane. What a race.
Yeah, Cranes, I'd say, are not quite as good as Phenoms are right now. He's in full attack mode.
Phenom is in dig, dig, dig.
Oh,
Oh boy.
That's
That's game.
Shutterwalk right here.
No, he's overloaded.
But he's got coin.
Oh, because that's not enough though. That's not enough.
Because
He
Phenom
is
wins
dead.
next turn.
Phenom will win next
'cause
turn.
It's a one-turn
It's not
combo.
enough.
Yeah. Wow.
That's game, Admirable.
Holy smokes. Crane throws up fist pump. 3 games to 1. He's going to advance to the top 4. And what a spectacular way to finish it. Quad combo in the top 4 of Philadelphia.
That is insane. I didn't think I'd see it. I don't know if I'd